The night was cold, and the city lights shimmered through the hospital window like distant stars. John sat beside the hospital bed, his hands trembling as he held onto the fragile, pale hand of his 9-year-old daughter, Lily. Her voice was faint, trembling. "Daddy," she whispered, "please, don't take the cloth off." John froze. He'd been about to unwrap the small piece of old white cloth tied around her wrist, a habit Lily had started ever since the accident. He didn't understand why she refused to let anyone remove it. But what he didn't know was that under that piece of cloth lay a story of love, guilt, and redemption that would change both of their lives forever. Just 1 year ago, life was very different for John and Lily. John was a single father, raising his daughter on his own after his wife passed away from cancer when Lily was just 6. He worked double shifts as a delivery driver, barely making ends meet. Lily was the kind of girl who lit up every room, full of life, laughter, and curiosity. She would wait at the window every evening, counting the minutes until her dad came home. "Daddy's home," she'd shout, running to hug him, still wearing his oversized cap that she'd borrowed forever. They didn't have much, a small apartment, second-hand furniture, and hand-me-down clothes, but they had each other. And that was enough. Until that one rainy evening. John got a call that made his heart stop. There had been an accident on the school bus. The driver had lost control on the wet road. Lily was one of the children injured, badly. When he reached the hospital, he saw her lying there, hooked to machines, her little body motionless. "Your daughter has suffered a severe spinal injury," the doctor said gently. "The lower half of her body may not regain movement." The words hit John like a storm. He wanted to scream, to run, to turn back time. But all he could do was sit by her bed and pray. Weeks passed. Lily was half paralyzed from the waist down. Her cheerful voice turned quiet. She stopped smiling. John tried everything: therapy, medication, encouragement. But she rarely spoke. One day, when he walked into her room, he saw her struggling to tie a small piece of white cloth around her wrist. "Sweetheart, what's that for?" he asked softly. It's just something I need, Daddy," she said, not meeting his eyes. "Please don't take it off, okay?" He nodded, confused but unwilling to push. Maybe it was her way of coping, he thought. Days turned into months. John's life became a routine: work, hospital visits, therapy sessions. He was exhausted, emotionally and physically. Sometimes, he'd break down in the hallway, gripping the railing, whispering, "Why her, God? Why not me?" But every time he saw her, weak, fragile, yet trying to smile, he found a reason to keep going. One afternoon, after dropping off a food delivery, John noticed a young man sitting outside the hospital, sketching something. His clothes were worn out, and he looked like he hadn't eaten in days. "Hey, you okay, buddy?" John asked. The man nodded. "Yeah, just trying to finish this drawing before the light fades." John peeked. It was a beautiful sketch of the hospital entrance, filled with emotion and detail. "That's incredible," John said. "You're talented." The young man smiled faintly. "Thanks. I used to paint for a living. But life happened." John felt a strange connection to him, two broken souls, surviving one day at a time. He bought him dinner that night. It wasn't much, just soup and bread, but the gratitude in the man's eyes said more than words ever could. They became friends. His name was Ethan. He started visiting Lily, bringing her hand-drawn pictures of birds, flowers, and faraway places. For the first time in months, she smiled. Again. One day, while Ethan was drawing by Lily's bedside, she said something that made both men pause. "Ethan," she whispered, "you know the cloth on my wrist?" He nodded. "Yeah, you never let anyone touch it. It's from the day of the accident," she said, her voice breaking. "There was this boy on the bus. He was sitting next to me. When the bus crashed, I was stuck under the seat. I couldn't move. I was crying. He was hurt too, bleeding. But he crawled toward me, tore a piece from his white shirt, and tied it around my wrist. He said, 'You'll be okay. This will protect you.'" Tears rolled down her cheeks. And then, he stopped moving. John's chest tightened. He'd never heard this before. Lily looked at the cloth like it was the most precious thing in the world. "I promised I'd never take it off. Because he gave his last breath to keep me calm." The room fell silent. Even Ethan looked away, wiping his eyes. A few weeks later, Lily was scheduled for a risky surgery. John was terrified. The doctors said it might help her regain some movement, or it might not. On the morning of the operation, Lily held her father's hand. "Daddy," she said softly, "if I don't wake up, don't be sad, okay? Just remember, you were the best daddy ever." John broke down, hugging her tightly. "Don't you dare talk like that. You're going to wake up. You hear me?" As the nurses wheeled her away, Ethan stopped by to see her. She smiled weakly. "You'll draw me something when I wake up, right?" "Of course," Ethan said. "A big sunflower, because you're my sunshine." Hours passed. John waited outside the operating room, pacing, praying, crying. Then suddenly, a nurse came rushing out. "We need more blood, type O negative." John's heart pounded. "That's my type," he shouted. "Take mine." But before he could move, Ethan stood up and said, "It's mine too. Let me help." He didn't even hesitate. Later, when the doctor finally came out, he smiled. "She's stable." The surgery went well. John collapsed into a chair, sobbing with relief. When he looked around to thank Ethan, he was gone. 2 days later, Lily woke up. Weak, but alive. John sat beside her, his eyes red from crying. "Hey there, sunshine," he said softly. She smiled. "Daddy, I can feel my toes." He froze. Then he saw it, her foot twitched slightly under the blanket. He shouted for the nurse, tears streaming down his face. "She's moving. She's moving." It was a miracle. But when Lily looked at her wrist, her smile faded. The cloth was gone. "Daddy," she said, panicked. "Where's my cloth?" John didn't know what to say. "Sweetheart, it must have come off during surgery. I'm so sorry." She began to cry. "No, I told you not to take it off. He said it would protect me." Just then, a nurse walked in holding a folded piece of paper. "Sir, someone left this for your daughter at the front desk." John opened it. Inside was a hand-drawn picture of a sunflower, and a message. "The boy on the bus was my little brother. I never got to say goodbye to him. But now I see, his kindness still lives in you. I gave you my blood so you could walk again, because that's what he would have done. Keep shining, sunshine. Ethan." John's hands trembled as he read. He realized now, Ethan wasn't just a friend. He was the brother of the boy who had saved Lily's life. And in saving hers again, he had honored his brother's memory. Months later, after therapy, Lily took her first step. Her legs trembled, but she did it, one step, then another. John stood there, crying openly. "That's my girl," he whispered. On her wrist, she wore a new white ribbon, this time, one her dad had tied himself. "For hope," he said. And beside her hospital bed hung a framed sunflower drawing, signed, Ethan. No one ever saw Ethan again. No address, no number. It was as if he had quietly disappeared after leaving his final gift. But every time Lily looked at the sunflower, she smiled. "He's out there somewhere, Daddy. Maybe drawing more sunshine for someone else." 2 years later, on a bright spring morning, Lily stood at the entrance of a children's rehabilitation center, not as a patient but as a volunteer. She spent her weekends helping other kids in wheelchairs, reading to them, telling them stories about bravery and kindness. And on her wrist, she still wore that white ribbon, now a symbol of strength and compassion. When people asked her why she always wore it, she'd smile and say, "Because someone once gave everything, just to make sure I'd be okay. And I'll spend the rest of my life doing the same for others." John, standing by the door, couldn't stop smiling. His heart was full. He had lost so much, but in the end, love, pure, selfless love, had given him everything back. As they walked home that evening, Lily looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you, Ethan, and your brother. I'll keep shining, just like you said."